That's what life is. We're all
Nobody voted you off the island yet.
not yet, not yet. Good afternoon,
Oh, I
gentlemen.
thought he
How we
was
doing?
talking to me.
Right.
We doing all right
Morning, guys.
today?
Doing great. How's everybody else?
Well, no complaints. Keeping super busy over here. We are the Reboot. Had a little bit of time off, and we're finally back together. Hopefully, getting on a regular schedule again. Quick introduction: I'm Brian Bradshaw with B&L Solutions. I'm based out of Long Island, New York. And on my right, no, I can't do it. Forget it.
It's okay. My name is Dave Gruda, and I am with Windstar Technologies. We are based out of Culpeper, Virginia, sort of, kind of by DC, sort of.
David Luft out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, with LDD Consulting.
Brandon Bowers with BPB Managed Cyber Solutions out of sunny South Florida.
We got pretty much the representing the entire country here. So
That's right.
Coast to coast.
Coast to coast. So we are beating this topic to death as of late, and there's good reason to do so. I mean, my own internal, I don't want to call it chaos because it's a good thing, but just the amount of work that we have based on the reports that we're getting from prospects. We wouldn't not have any of these newer prospects calling if they had some of these controls in place. So cybersecurity, insurance requirements, we've talked about a couple of similar topics in the past, but I think it's important to kind of just zone in on some of the specifics. We don't have to get into products, we can, but I just think the specifics, and we're filling out forms. I get forms, at least 2 or 3 forms a month from existing clients that we're going through and putting in the correct controls in place, or you don't get the insurance. It comes down to that. That's what it boils down to. And we won't sign off on anything. We generally don't sign these forms anyway. We have the clients sign them, but they know what they're definitely a little more well versed now than they were even as recently as last year. I hate to say it, and they're not going away. They're becoming more aggressive, and a lot of the stuff on those forms can easily be checked. So it's not a matter of just saying yes. You actually some of the stuff can be. I don't know if they're going out there and actually checking on this stuff, but you don't want to do that. Then you're.
I have seen some testing, honestly.
Yeah, have you? Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the cyber insurance requirements, right? Like it. Look, I mean, it's not hard to understand that they've been taking a beating. The insurance companies for the last couple of years, ransomware and other types of cyber events have really put
which stem from
a lot of these things that we're talking about.
No. I'm going back
not
to
having these controls in place.
Well, yeah, but I'm going one step further and kind of blaming it on, not blaming it, but COVID is really where a lot of this came out.
This is where it started. That's where it got exactly.
You know what I mean? Exactly.
Let's put it that way.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll give you that. But so
they were making good money working from home.
I'm sorry.
Because the criminals are making good money working from home.
They were liking that, yeah. So traditionally, they are very, profitable companies, insurance companies, and when they start taking losses, they get bothered by that. And so, yeah, Brian, you made a great point. You might get denied your insurance claim if you don't have these definite controls, but worse than that, if you get insurance and then have an event, what's going to happen next is your insurance company is going to be forensically ripping apart your network to try and figure out how it happened. And if you didn't have the controls in place that were requirements of that cyber insurance policy, now your claim is going to be denied. And so you're not only in the middle of a crisis, but you're now financially on the hook for it. And so that makes it, imperative for business owners who are understanding that they need to carry insurance for their risk and liability. Certainly cyber insurance is one of those good ones. They got to start, understanding what that means when they're getting it, what the expectations are.
Yeah,
I can keep talking for a while, but I'll let you guys say a few things.
If we're gonna get into some of the specific items that people need to have in place, before that, I also want to just lay a little foundation that it's not just cyber insurance requirements. Like every industry is coming up with, between industry and state level requirements, to put some of these things in place. So if you're in New York, you're getting hit with New York DFS. If you're publicly traded or you're a fund manager, SEC is on you with these new requirements, and now you even need to report within like I think it's like a 72-hour time frame now if you have some sort of incident.
Right.
California has requirements. State of Florida has adopted requirements around breach notification laws. If you're in the accounting, even automobile industry, FTC safeguards is probably hitting you in some ways.
I think it's safe to say there's very few businesses at all in this country that don't fall under some compliance framework, right? Because I mean, the very simple fact is if you take credit cards, at a minimum, PCI comes into play, right? It might not be your different levels and depending on processing and who's handling it, but it's still a compliance factor.
But my processor handles all that PCI compliance.
That's right. Doesn't matter. Okay, so maybe that's true, but you're still regulated by that.
Yeah.
Like not from the government, but from the industry in that case.
Yeah. But the key thing that I want to mention is it's not just cyber insurance. But the good thing is that a lot of the items that are listed on that cyber insurance questionnaire, though, are items that go across every one of these compliances. So PCI, safeguards, NIST, CMMC, they're all kind of going to these core items, which is multi-factor authentication, having good endpoint protection, like all of the key foundation items that I would say we've probably been preaching for years. Yeah. Now it's just becoming a legislation requirement or compliance requirement depending on your industry.
Well, look, let's take it just a quick step further. Take notice. Most of our compliance frameworks, and I'm just making some broad general statements here, but they're loosely based in some level on the cybersecurity framework, right? Which is what NIST created many years ago. When I say many, we're talking like 15 or something. They're now doing version 2, and they've added a 6th pillar to their whole cybersecurity framework. So it's, detect, protect, respond, identify, recover. Now we have govern, right? Govern is a new pillar. And what that's telling me is that you're going to start seeing more emphasis on accountability, right? On the governance of your cybersecurity program, meaning making sure we can prove that our employees have had those security awareness training packages that the insurance company requires, and making sure that MFA is enabled and being able to provide evidence for those things. And, that kind of stuff, which is always the missing piece when we come into, to businesses that are trying to be secure and be compliant. We get into that governance aspect and it's always it's a zero, right? Like, and I'm not saying that to be negative. It's a big unknown bucket for a lot of these folks, so it's a lot to overcome, but it's coming. I mean,
and it's not just, I've seen one of the ones we did was not just the cyber renewal application. There was a ransomware supplemental follow-up that was, alongside that. And a lot of the stuff was
Beasley sends these, and that questionnaire that I saw, it was substantial. It was the largest questionnaire I've seen from a cyber insurance renewal in quite some time.
Yeah, I gotta say, going through those reviews with the business owners and our clients and such really has helped enlighten them to have a better understanding of what all this stuff means and how it impacts them and their business. And so it has brought together a little bit more education and awareness.
Yeah. Let's talk about a couple of the controls and why they're important and what they even mean. One of the first ones on the application I'm looking at is screening emails. Obviously, I think everyone knows that regardless of what platform you have out there, you want some perimeter filtering before that email gets to you. Looking and scanning attachments, looking for any type of malware viruses in the attachments, looking that the sender is valid, doing a reverse look on the sender. So all these little mini controls should be in place so that most of the email that you get, the goal is that it's vetted, right? And some people say, oh yeah, we have 365, it's done already. It's like, well,
or we have Google, it's done already.
Exactly. And we have some good controls in place, and we still have stuff that gets through. I mean, it's just, so without that, I can't even imagine. And I show clients when we sit down for our reviews, the amount of stuff that we've stopped for them. And it's eye-opening because it's crazy. Not only the spam, but the amount of viruses we've captured, potential malware in some of these emails that have gone out. So we're able to use that. But that's a simple control, right? To have some sort of perimeter filtering. And on your own domain, if you're implementing for prevention for you, the sender policy framework, the SPF, and a lot of prospects that just don't have that. They don't have DMARC, they don't have DKIM, and these are things that are records that you create, or your webmaster or your IT company can create. Should take about, I don't even know, guys.
Hopefully it's not the webmaster, because every time I see them, they're done incorrectly. Leave this to the IT professional.
But how many domains do you look at in prospects, or even in
happens all the time,
right? That it's just improperly configured.
So the reason for all that, right? Obvious. I mean, it's pretty obvious to us, but maybe not so much to everybody else. But like 3 years running, for sure, business email compromise is the biggest reason for ransomware and cyber incidents. And what does that mean? That means that we put all these controls in place. We teach people. We do things. We watch things. And yet somehow, some way, somewhere, a user someday will get an email and they'll click on it and it will be a bad thing. And that's like, as an industry, that's the battle, right? Like, I mean, I'm sorry, but so far that's the biggest reason of all these breaches. So if we can fix that in one way, only one possible method is by having spam filtering. And that's not a guarantee. It's just it's a layer.
That's all it is, right?
Some of these other hygiene items that Brian was mentioning, though, they're not going to necessarily save you from business email compromise. But if you do get a compromise, what everybody's hearing about now is wire transfer fraud, fund fraud, something like that, because someone ultimately ends up trying to impersonate your domain.
Right.
And what SPF, DKIM, DMARC help prevent is somebody from pretending to be you and sending emails as you, when maybe they didn't get access to your domain yet, or maybe they had access, but now they're trying to impersonate and send things to a client and, try and get that ACH routing number changed and stuff like that. So these are just fundamental things that don't cost any money. Right. This is just going into the configuration, making sure it's done.
That's right.
Yeah.
I will say be careful, because if you're not aware of all the folks who are sending mail on your behalf, that could cause some issues until you.
And where we lose a little bit of control, and it's unfortunate. And I have not seen some of the better clients will do this, but if there is a lookalike domain that is registered, what we do. So if I have blpc.com, if someone registers bipc.com and uses the capital I in the display, that's going to look like it comes from our domain, right? So with a lookalike domain, I would say what I would do is right away, immediately, I would block that any inbound from that domain coming to me. Then I would also let all of my clients know to block this domain. I mean, fortunately for us, we have control of most of our clients' emails, so we go in there proactively and block it. But when this happens to a client, and we try to explain to them, let your clients know there's a lookalike domain of your domain. Can you let your clients know to block this, or have their IT block it? It doesn't get done.
Or even buy it if it's available. I mean, it's $20 a year or less.
Well, we do that for clients. We do that for some clients. We have 20 domains with any combination that we could think of, and it's for the money that they spend on that. It was maybe a couple $100, honestly, and for 5 years just to have the name. You can't even equate that to if there was a breach, with one of these names. So, but again, it's important to kind of follow our guidance with this kind of thing, because there's a reason that domain was purchased, and it's the last compromise we looked at last month, the domain was registered in September. We're in October now. It was registered the same month that they were compromised. So, and to dig a little further, they had already been compromised months prior. We went back 3 months. They were compromised 3 months prior. They were sitting in there, then finally purchased this domain and tried to send out these emails, and unfortunately were successful at it. That's why they were a former prospect, currently a client, because that's exactly what happened. And that's that's easy, and it's so preventable that that's why these controls. That's why it's on these forms, though, for those reasons.
Yeah.
Well, that's why insurance companies are requiring it, right? Because they know that can have an impact, and it's not really cost prohibitive or most people can get
the big thing. Obviously, I mean, we could say this to a blue in the face is MFA, and I still can't even believe the amount of people I talk to that it's not enabled. And it's what do you do, right? And
I'm finding that in more cases we come in and we find that they went through the process of enrolling, but they're leveraging like security defaults or something that doesn't necessarily require MFA every time you connect. And so you're still not fully protected. This goes back to some of the configuration things, like it needs to be set up in a way appropriate based on either the business risk and where they're
Yeah.
at. And
Yeah.
if you kind of just let Microsoft turn things on for you, it might not be exactly what you're expecting or believed to be the case, as actually being the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Well, we had somebody, and this is again going back maybe 2 months ago, and this is something for if you have in-house IT or outsourced IT, make sure that this is being done correctly. We had somebody that called because they had enabled MFA. What happened was never enforced it. So this user, a threat actor, got into his account and they finished the MFA process on their own. So
added their own device, added their own
that's it.
phone. Oh,
It was
God.
done. This guy couldn't get into his email, and it was just like, so it's not. You may think you have MFA
See,
enabled,
that's
but
the governance part, right? Like I'm going to
yeah,
keep coming back to that because
sure,
I can't emphasize this enough. But
right,
You got
that's
to go
like
check it.
saying, that's saying we installed antivirus. Great. Are you sure it's running? Is it updated?
right,
Is it on every machine?
When's the last time you checked?
Right.
yeah, yeah,
That's the point.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big
Yeah,
thing. Just auditing things all the time.
And look,
Yeah,
IT
we
people can be the
practice
ones
every
that
quarter doing
cost
a
the
review.
farm.
Yeah.
Like you turn something off to do work, and then you forget to turn it back on, right? So your internal IT, your external outside, anybody's. This is you don't have to like not know what you're doing to make a mistake like that. That's
Yeah.
why you need to continuously be monitoring and assessing and making sure that if you forget to turn MFA back on after doing some task, that's leaving a gap, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
now I have a company that's got a process and a procedure in place. They're using MFA, but there's still a gap, and that leaves it open for a threat actor.
Yep.
So,
Yep. One of the other
You know what
ones
I've
is
been seeing?
go ahead, Brandon. Sorry.
I was just going to say what I've been seeing across all of the forums now, which was not something typical. I even see names of products listed in there. So we mentioned the anti-spam thing in the beginning. I won't talk about that, but EDR or MDR,
That's where I
endpoint
was going.
detect and respond, manage, detect and respond. Now I see, like names. Hey, do you have Cylance, SentinelOne, Carbon Black, one of these, bigger name vendors? Do you have this deployed? And I mean, I feel like that's great for education. So I'm getting clients that ask, well, what is that? Well, we've had this for you for a long time. Don't worry about it. We're going to check the box. Yes. But for those that aren't aware, these are products that are not just looking at patterns or definitions and relying on downloading information to make sure that your computers are protected, but they're using AI, computer learning, or even pushing data to a 24/7 security team that's like analyzing the behavior and the logs and what's happening on the endpoint to say, hey, this doesn't look like it should be happening. Okay, let's isolate it or let's do something about it.
right.
And that's really where, things differ in terms of that type of protection.
The common misconception, I think, on some level is people don't realize the speed at which this can happen, right? Like certainly the threat actors are going to come in your network. They're going to hang around. They're going to do some investigation. So that's not a fast process. They can be there for weeks, months, whatever. But the point I'm trying to say is like when they decide to push the button on the encryption or whatever attack method they're going to use against you, there is not but nanoseconds to be making decisions. And a human being, not even close. I don't care what you got, your hands on mouse button, it ain't happening. You're not stopping anything.
And when are they going to do it? They're going to do it when no one's looking.
Right.
So
that's where that hey, at best, I got to have something that at least can make a guess. Like this doesn't look normal, doesn't seem right. And I'm told if that's the case, I'm to just shut this thing down and isolate it so we can make a better decision tomorrow. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what that's doing. And that's what that extended detection and response protection is accomplishing.
Yeah.
And not only that is it can incorporate other data sets.
Exactly.
So instead of just your endpoint, your computer that you're logged into, what about your Office 365 or your Google and, kind of pulling all that data together to analyze, hey, something is out of the norm. Something's happening that really shouldn't be. And
that's
let's do
SIEM,
something
right?
about
I'm
it.
logs from multiple vectors. And so I can cross analyze. I see something that looks like an odd behavior. Let me look at it from this perspective because I got the lock file. Oh, that's different than anything there too. That's two differences. Like, okay, we're hitting a positive here, you know?
Yeah.
Threshold is reached. Off we go.
Another one that is, I think very simple to implement is just disk encryption, right? I mean, we're seeing a lot of stuff with PII, data sensitive information, payroll. I mean, tax returns for years just sitting in someone's download folder on a computer that doesn't have a drive encrypted. And we explain, especially to prospects, that this is just flipping a switch. It's as easy as that, just to get you another layer, to make it that much more difficult to minimize any sort of compromise. And it's just not on, right? And it's just one of those things that you wonder, how much easier can we make it? I mean, that's part of our checklist now. So all of our clients on our onboarding for new equipment is obviously install all of our security software, put our controls in place, but also, one of the items is to enable that full disk encryption. It's just, why not? It's easy enough to do. But no one out of the box, no one does it. No one has it. They just frankly don't know enough to do it.
It's also a shelter from any notification requirements.
That's exactly right. And Brandon, you mentioned earlier breach notification in states. I don't think there's any states left that don't have breach notification laws. As far as I'm concerned, it's all 50, and if it isn't, will be soon.
Right.
The point of the matter is, if you got enough records on a machine and then you get breached, if you got that encryption, the cool part is you don't even need to. I'm not saying this is good, but you don't even need to know how many records were on that machine. If you can prove by providing evidence through the governance that you had that disk encrypted, it is not an incident. Right.
Yeah.
And going back to what you said, Brian, as long as you're running like Windows Pro and not a Home Edition or something, it's free to do stuff like this. There's,
got to have a TPM. I mean, into clients and prospects that have machines that still don't have TPM chips because they're too old, right?
Yeah.
So it's not. There's a lot out there that can't be encrypted so easily still today.
The one thing that I'm noticing is happens more during onboarding. Hey, we don't have any PII on any of our machines. We don't really store any of this information. We don't have social security numbers. And then we go through the process as we're onboarding and we're actually scanning all the machines and trying to understand where is the data, what's on the machines. We always find something. Somebody's tax returns, like you said, they downloaded it's in their download folder. And at least the disk is encrypted once we process our onboarding. Yeah.
I will say,
but the response to that, no matter, I can tell you 10 times out of 10, the response is, yeah, but then they move it to where it has to go, like wherever. No, they're copying it. They're not moving it.
Right.
And one of the things we do is we just put a 30-day policy on that downloads folder and just wipe everything out. But again, you're still vulnerable for those 30 days, right? But it's at least just cleaning it up and doing a little bit of automated housekeeping to help facilitate that. We had and one of the controls to go back to that point is we have a client undergoing an internal pen test this week. It's a week-long pen test, and the SOC we're using for this client's on it started at midnight on Monday morning after midnight, 12:14 a.m. The SOC was alerting us that the unknown host is trying to compromise an administrator account. Like, so we know that because that's intended, but without
that's testing the systems at the same time. I mean, that's good. You want the SOC to reach out when that's happening.
Exactly.
I would also say when it comes back to the email and different copier machines, they oftentimes have hard drives. And they oftentimes are set up to do an open relay for email so that people can send it to whoever they like. And Microsoft, if you're using Microsoft 365, that's become harder and harder and harder to do over time for security. So what they do is they subvert it by going through some other provider that is not secure and isn't
like a free Gmail account.
It isn't, and now they're sending mail on your behalf. So yeah, that's one place you definitely want to pay attention to for sure.
We honestly, for most of our clients, we block those scanners from sending anything outside the organization. That's
guaranteed that's what we do. But the clients that we don't have yet are sitting there, wide open. And look, if you're under a compliance regulation, holy cow, because that means I can grab a stack of papers off of anybody's desk and go to that copier and scan the email and send it back home to me so that when I get home, I can look at it all day long and do what I want with it. That's a bad thing.
And that's going through a relay that has no DLP controls
And
on
you
it. That
have
has
no idea it
nothing.
happened. There's no
Yep.
alerts, no problems, no nothing. No, you can't even prove it didn't happen.
Right.
Right.
The only way to do that is to have it blocked.
That's right.
And
It's not what this call is for.
I
But
know, it's
not only
cyber
that, you're
controls.
giving that copy machine back in 5 years, and the drive has the majority of that scan data still retained as cache on it. So there's another piece of due diligence that you should be doing to ensure that gets wiped on a regular basis. Most newer machines can do that.
Right out of there. That's what
as long as it's configured, though, Yeah, but
No,
yes, you
you
can
just
also
take
take it out.
No hard
I see a lot of people that they encrypt the disks, but you can actually encrypt the folders and files too, so it's specific to a person.
Yeah.
That's something a lot of people don't do if you have that kind of PII or PCI type.
Well, right. Important to remember that full disk encryption doesn't work while the computer's on, right?
It was really funny. So I had a client that got a copy machine, and for the interim period where the new machine was coming in, they gave them like a spare loaner for a while. They ended up keeping that loaner for a long time. But when we got it, I started looking at the configuration. It was never wiped by the vendor. It was for the Miami Dolphins. And so all the configuration was still on there. I mean, we weren't going through the process of trying to recover any of the data from it, but you knew that it was on it. So
it was there.
I just wiped the entire thing after that.
And did you build the Miami Dolphins?
What happened?
Did you bill the Miami Dolphins for that, for saving their information from being?
I should have had an intro from that.
I just want to add, though, along the similar lines, what we're talking about with the encryption is that one of the questions on the form is, any sensitive information that you're emailing, do you encrypt that? And everyone we talk to is like, how?
They say yes. They always check off yes. I say, no, you don't.
I'm like, no, you don't. Like, this is,
That's the key. I think I would like everybody to take away, at least me personally, is the one thing we began with is, look, cyber insurance is necessary. Absolutely. But then follow through and do what the policy requires you to do, because it's useless if you don't. And so those are the two things: get it and then follow it. And then we're all protected as best as we can be. It's not about trying to spend a ton of money. It's about protecting you and your work and your business and your money.
Yep.
Your life work.
Yep.
And we see a lot of security systems like cameras. Those have holes in them when you do.
Those are the worst.
They're attached to the same network. They got RDP ports open, facing out to the internet. People are.
We can have a completely entire call on access control systems, security cameras, and the lack of security.
We're gonna have a podcast every day.
They don't update them in
700 days.
That's why it's important to segment the networks.
Yeah,
because they're not updating them.
Which I have not seen that on one of these questionnaires, but any compliance requirement has it.
I've seen things like, do you have air gapped or immutable backups?
No, that's true.
They're starting to get a little bit. And the concern I have with insurance companies and those things is they don't necessarily know all the technology, and I get a little worried when they're making the demands and they don't necessarily understand the impact or the context, right? And I know that they're bringing in their own professional IT people, but I'm sorry, I don't see the evidence of that. So be careful, insurance companies. That's all I'm saying. Please be prudent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Went a little over, but I think we covered some of the key controls that we're all seeing out there, and reach out to your IT company, whoever's handling your IT in your business, and make sure that in order to get this insurance, that these controls not only are being used, but they're being used the right way in the right context. And it's not a set it and forget. You may have to make changes, and just like anything else, it's not a one and done. There's a lot of housekeeping, and maybe check things quarterly. Make sure that, like to your point, David, you know what, these three computers, everyone has SentinelOne. Oh, these three computers don't. It's just like you got to get into that habit of making sure that everything is up to date.
Yep. And you're not going to get it right perfect 100% of the time, first time. Like, it's never, don't wait till you're ready. You just implement what you can today, and then work on a cadence of improving over time, and continually be looking at it and continually be improved. Little baby steps. That's all it takes. Because if a hacker can hit you and they can see that it's going to be a little bit frustrating, they're moving on. Like, that's pretty good bet, right? I'm not guaranteeing that, but I'm just saying, like, make it hard on them because they're lazy. They're going to go to the next guy. There's plenty of people out there who aren't doing what they should be doing. So
we actually had somebody try and steal our truck, but they were too lazy to work to buy their own vehicle, and it was a little bit difficult. They stopped trying to steal our truck too.
I mean,
They're lazy for that.
they might be, good at hacking, but it doesn't make them like, motivated or productive or anything.
Right. They're just going for the low hanging fruit.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
How easy can this be? And
That's right. So,
apparently with MGM Grand, you just call up and get your password changed.
all right. Hey, look, if you don't have anybody to help you with this stuff, any one of us will be happy to help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys. Until next week, let's sit on that.
Be safe.
Have a good day.
And it is
Thanks,
October
guys.
Cybersecurity Awareness Month, guys.
It is.
Stay on
Yeah,
top.
follow me. I've got lots of tips going out every day.
There you go. See you guys.
Take care,
Yeah.
guys.